Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday Rockstar released a brand new adversary mode, which is something that hasn't happened in quite some time. The game mode is called Double Down and basically plays the same way as it did in Siege Mentality. It's a bit of a different take to it, and one would argue it's probably a better version of it. If you remember the remakes modes of, for example, Sumo and all that sort of stuff, it basically expanded upon the original idea and then either improved it or made it far worse, depending on what you think. Personally, I think that the Double Down is a similar idea, but then from Siege Mentality. The concept is the exact same. You have 2 defenders having to defend a position for 4 minutes, and then you have 8 attackers trying to prevent them from doing that. The attackers will have double-barrel shotguns, and the defenders will have basically a whole wide array of arsenal, like a grenade launcher, a special carbine Mark II, the combat MG, and just a whole heap of weapons to basically try to defend themselves as best as they can. In terms of ammo count, it seems pretty well balanced, as there is only 5 bullets in your grenade launcher and only 12 in your sniper. The sniper is particularly useful at the start of the round, as people are all just rushing you in an open field, and you can typically easily pick them off too. Personally, I have to say that I've definitely grown a liking to the game mode. Though it's not perfect, I have to say that it's definitely one of the better adversary modes that has been released to the game. A competent attacker team though will probably run over a defender team very quickly. Having played this in both random lobbies as well as with my own crew on stream, there's definitely a night and day difference in how much chance the defenders have. Obviously, the people in my crew and on stream are more experienced with the game, so they were more likely to try to figure out ways how to flank the defenders rather than trying to bomb rush into the same direction the entire time and then kinda hoping for the best. But even an attacker team constantly bomb rushing you from the same direction also just drives you into a corner, and then it kinda takes one attacker to kinda think like, hey, what if I flank this person, and you're effectively 1 or 2 shots away from being dead. That is kind of also the challenge of the defender team, but I'd have to say that because of that, there's definitely a few things that I would like to see changed within the defenders team. The defenders team should definitely not be able to be smacked in the face and effectively just being a one-shot, one-kill, because that is honestly just a big no-no. If you're able to rush towards an attacker and just smack them in the face and it's game over, it's kind of cheap. The attacker team having 8 players sometimes feels like a little bit too much. Having like 2 or maybe even more or less attackers in the team will probably go a long way. Obviously, this is something that if you're hosting the match that you can keep an eye on, so if you're trying to get a better experience after having tried a full lobby, try seeing if it's more enjoyable if you have less people on the attacker team. When it comes to maps, I feel that they're pretty okay balanced. Most of them aren't too bad in terms of that, though there's definitely a few outliers where it's more steered towards the attacker team than it is to the defender team. For example, the train map, which is the second map of the bunch, is definitely much more guided towards the attacker team than to the defender team. I don't think I've ever seen the defender team win a match, and I think the closest it's ever gotten to was like 5 seconds and they still died. So mainly because of how slow the train is going and how open you really are, and they have bikes and they can just melee you off there. Though I do think that perhaps on the console this would be less of a problem, because it might be a little bit more difficult to try to free aim your way off the bike and try to shoot them. And I also think that the defender team will have an easier time, considering they can just lock on to the bikes and just shoot them down rather quickly. So maybe that's not much of an issue on console. The map in the docks, on the other hand, for example, is much more steered toward the defenders in my opinion, because all the enemies are coming from one singular direction. But again, having played this with viewers from stream, you can kind of see that with the right team, you're still able to outflank them. The attacker team really kind of comes down to when you're on a more competitive mode, where you kind of find the exact moment where you can flank someone and catch them off guard. There's many ways of how you can do so, and it kind of does make the defender team pretty damn difficult at times, but it's kind of the charm to me as well to have that kind of challenge. Even in a public lobby, I even had to fight for my life pretty well, and I believe that's probably the gameplay that you're watching right now. There's definitely a few outliers inside of the map rotation, which could possibly do with a little bit of rebalancing, especially on the defender side. You could, well, get the wrong end of the stick rather quickly on, for example, the military map. Inside of this map, there's, I think, about 4 or 5 different ways of how you can get up to the defender side, which might be a little bit excessive. I believe there's 2 different sets of stairs, then you can just simply climb on there. It may be a little bit too much. You have to remember that this is a 2 versus 8 mode, and well, they already vastly outnumbers, and they're just 1 or 2 shotgun shots away from killing you in one go, which is obviously something you want to avoid. Perhaps a little bit more health for the defender team to kind of mitigate the amount of attackers that are coming their way might even go a long way. Unfortunately, I think at the same time, we probably also know what all this feedback is going to do, because, well, knowing the adversary mode plague is that this is the adversary mode for the next 7 years, and they're not going to bother doing anything with it except for removing it from the game to change it with Rhino Hunt, for example, for a couple of weeks. And while the fact that when adversary modes are being removed and then coming back with no changes whatsoever does speak volumes about the chances that Rockstar has to fix adversary modes and make them a little bit better, to give them a new life, and just choosing not to. Maybe we should start a hashtag for that. It's a joke. It's a joke, everyone. Calm down. Calm down. It's just a joke. So overall, from a public lobby perspective, I think this game mode will work out pretty well. I think you're starting to see more issues whenever you're playing with more competent players. In a general perspective, I think in public lobby, this game mode will be fine. You'll probably have a good time with it. And that might have to do with the player level of skill. Obviously, like I said before, competent players, you will definitely have a much harder time on the defender team, and the attacker team will definitely be able to run you over much easier. So keep that in mind, and obviously maybe try to see if you can play this in some public lobbies and see what you like for yourself. Personally, I like the game mode. I think it's one of the better adversary modes that has been added to the game for quite some time. Obviously, I've only played this on PC, so I'm not entirely sure how well this will work out on the console, but I have a rough idea that most of the time it will probably be fine. Regardless, with all that said and all that done, thank you all so very much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more, and if you really like what's here on the channel, consider becoming a member, like Chloe, Robert, Madman Dakota, Captain Price, and Shapeshift Gaming. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you all later.